What moment in your life made you realize that you were the villain to someone else's story? What moment made you realize you could be rightfully labeled as a bad person? Please subscribe and activate the beside the subscribe button to get a notification. Share your own story in the comments section below. I'm sure I'm the villain in lots of people's stories. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I'm sure there are people who think I've somehow wronged them because they don't know the complete story on my side or refuse to acknowledge it because of their ego, and I'm sure the same is true for me. However, it doesn't mean that I or the other person necessarily did anything wrong. Things just don't always work out the way you'd like or expect them to. This is spot on. Most people always see themselves as the protagonists of their own story, and it took me 22 years to wake up and realize the truth. You make such a good point that so many arguments are based on misunderstandings and people coming from two different sets of assumptions. When I was younger, I anonymously posted some pretty gnarly things about a classmate online. Me and my friend thought it was pretty funny, and honestly it was kind of mindless. But it did a lot of harm to her, and I didn't realize I was a cyberbully until later on. I ended up meeting with her a few years later to admit what I had done and make amends. She threw me out of her house, and for the first time I really saw the damage I did and how much it had hurt her. She ended up contacting me after that to say she forgave me and respected that I told her face to face. It's something I was so ashamed of I was going to take it to my grave, but I'm glad I owned up to it. I am obviously the villain of that story though, and it hurts because it's generally very uncharacteristic of me, but it's something I have to live with. We are mostly idiots as children, and I do believe the best punishment to our misdeeds is having to live to the guilt of knowing what we have done. I'm the villain to so many people. I'm a teacher. I do villainous things like set homework, tell children off for being despicable to other children, tell their parents what lazy little beasts they are, and so on. I don't really think any of that makes me a bad person though. I don't think you are a villain or a bad person, ahahaha. That's just doing your job, and little kids obviously don't understand. I work with 11-18-year-olds and they don't understand either. I work in HR, most adults don't understand either. I know how to socialize, but I don't understand people all the time. Over the years, particularly when I was younger, my words and actions have hurt others. It was not my intention, but I hurt them. Nonetheless, in their minds, if they remember me at all, I'm at the very least a jerk. Well, it's good you know now so you can prevent hurting people the same way in the future. I am the villain that ruined my mother's life in her mind. Backstory: I was born with a lot of health problems. I was constantly in the hospital, and that put a huge strain on my parents. My dad was only 17 and my mother was 18. I am a twin and my sister is perfect. When I was about 5, my parents were fighting a lot and got a divorce. My mother had developed a drug habit and blamed me for everything: her failed marriage, her drug habit, losing custody of my sister and older brother, everything. When I was about 5 or 6, my mother dropped my siblings off with my dad along with her child support payment and told me that she wished I had died. My dad immediately kicked her out of my hospital room and started damage control, but it had already been said. My dad did his best to shield us from everything, but life was hard. He took every job he could get to make ends meet. He would do everything he could to make me smile and always told me he didn't care what happened as long as we, his children, were okay. For a long time I wondered if my mother was right and if my family would have been better off if I had died. I was a huge burden on my family and I hate it. You are not a villain. Agreed, but wow, her mom. I used to be a hater when I was a teenager, put others down trying to raise myself up. Didn't work. Luckily I realized that behavior stemmed from low confidence and self-esteem, so I worked on that. I'm 21 and just graduated uni, in the same boat. I feel like it took me so much longer than most people to realize my poor behavior. I also realized I was projecting my own insecurities and anxieties onto those closest to me. I drove away a lot of people as a result, and didn't understand why for a long time. Now I look back upon all the poor decisions I've made, the poor choice of words I've said out of my own lack of self-esteem, and the impact of them with great shame. The shame and guilt consumes me. During the pandemic I had a lot more time to self-reflect, and I began to recognize when making decisions nowadays if my decision is rooted in low self-confidence. I'm actively trying to improve on that, and I'm proud of my progress so far in 2021. Still though, I'm so ashamed of how I've treated people in past. I don't look back on my time in university fondly. Any advice on how to resolve those feelings? There was this other student when I was in nursing school. I couldn't stand him, like his personality to me was so annoying. I would roll my eyes every time he talked. It was a very small class, so he noticed. Despite that, he was always decent to me. I would always think about it afterwards. At the end of the day, I would tell myself I would do better the next day. I never did control it. We were just too different. One day, I caught him and this other student cheating. I was cool with that other student, but after that I turned against her too. I immediately reported them both. I wasn't even mad about it though. I realized later that I only did it because I couldn't stand him. Had it been just the other student, or anyone else, I would have probably just confronted them. The other student got kicked out, but he stayed. The whole class was against him though, even the instructors. He didn't even go to our graduation or participate in our group celebration and stuff. Pretty sure because of me. I knew the whole time I was being a bad person, but I would push those thoughts back and continue to justify my passive bullying. I didn't really accept that I was the bad guy here until maybe a year later. That's a pretty insightful story. Thanks for sharing. Oh, countless. They're right about it and have the right to feel that way. The thing is, it doesn't affect me. I either agree or disagree with how wrong I was, and I can decide how I feel about it without keeping myself awake at night because someone feels badly about me. Their truth is theirs and mine is mine. How do you do that, lol? Man, I literally just realized one day that other people's thoughts about me live inside of their own heads. Whether they love me or hate me does not affect my life in any way. It was like a switch flipped and it's now that easy. First, villain to someone else does not equate to being a bad person. Second, I'm sure I'm a villain to several people, mostly from high school, but I stand by everything I've done. There's one thing where I don't stand by how I did it: rejected someone in a rude way because I was surprised and didn't have time to think of how to be tactful, but that does not make me a bad person. Second, I'm sure I'm a villain to several people, mostly from high school, but I stand by everything I've done. Why do you think you were a villain to several people in high school? 1. There was this one girl who was jealous of my body, my wealthy parents, my intelligence, and my vague popularity, and I'm pretty sure she hated my guts. I didn't do anything to her though, so not my fault. 2. There was this one guy who I disagreed with a lot politically and people liked my opinions better than his and he blamed me for it. Most memorable example, in English class, he said that poor people should starve if they can't afford a liberal arts education and then skipped French class to avoid me. 3. Probably a couple others that never even occurred to me. Speep happens, undefined. How do you know that girl was jealous of you for those things but pretty sure she hated your guts? Did she tell you she was jealous of you for those things? I can't lie, the way that it's worded comes off a bit strange, so I thought I'd ask. She was constantly picking on me for being thinner, but was always doing crazy fad diets, stuff like that. A couple of times she told me she was jealous of particular things, but mostly I had to guess based on what she made fun of then imitated. Not sure why people downvoted me for answering a question. Said pretty sure she hated my guts. BC, I'm not sure she was consciously aware of the situation enough to actually hate me. I see, thanks for responding. I didn't downvote you and can only see the points my comment got, but I was genuinely wondering. I think her first comment maybe just needed a bit more context, not a critique or anything, but that's maybe why it was downvoted. Thanks for sharing, though it sucks to be made fun of or picked on. More than once I've ghosted friendships, either when I've been wronged or because I just saw their true colors and wasn't interested. And rather than waste more of my time and energy letting them know why, I just cut all ties. I have done this too, but never felt like a bad person for it. I have suffered enough if I turned to ghosting a friendship. I hold them in very high regard. I don't at all feel like a bad person for it, but I recognize that the other side might disagree. When I was 7, I kicked a boy who was autistic because he put his arm around me. Okay, I said it. I'm an ASP. Did the same with an NT. Now we're even, lol. I was 19 and my baby sister was about 2. My mum had been laying the abuse on thick for a week and left me alone to babysit. I didn't make it a habit at all being mean to my sister. I love her like she was my own. But the day I stubbed my toe and she was laughing about it because to a 2-year-old that's hilarious, I just screamed and yelled at her, trying to upset her and make her feel how I felt, but she kept laughing. I'm so glad she was too little to absorb that bullspeak, but I'm deeply ashamed of myself for trying to emotionally abuse a 2-year-old. Surviving an abusive household does not bring out the best in ourselves. I hope you can give yourself forgiveness for not coming out the other side unscathed. For every story where you're the villain, it's possible that you're the hero to an equal number of people. There's light and dark in everybody. True, but everyone remembers some moments where they were the heroes. Many don't even realize when they've been a villain. I just want everyone to realize when they are sometimes. Someone's good deed doesn't make up for their bad one. Especially if it's not to the same person. Everyone makes mistakes, but many people who are repeat offenders in the "I just didn't like them so I hurt them" category deeply irritate me because they're so far into denial. A guy friend and I had been friends for about 2 years when, suddenly, we both caught very strong feelings for each other. We were both still choosing to deny it to ourselves and to each other when he became interested in taking out a girl from our class. I happened to be good friends with her, and I talked him up so big to her because I was in love with him. She was thrilled to date him. It ended up with he and I flirting like crazy in front of her when we were drunk, and it was apparent his interest wasn't in her at all. It rightfully ruined my relationship with this girl, and she will never trust me the same way again. Worst part is, this wasn't even high school, we were in our 20s. I am 100% the villain in her story, and it appeared I finally showed my true colors to her. I had never been so careless with a friend's feelings like I had been with hers. I was just discussing this with one of my friends the other day. I think I was around 22 at the time. I'm an old head. I was just laying around in my apartment and my thoughts drifted back to high school. There were several instances in which I had felt bullied and mistreated, and some were definitely legitimate, but then I thought harder about things I had done either in retaliation, or to other people, all in the name of being a good friend. In my mind, it was okay to antagonize people that had antagonized my friend, because I was standing up for my friend. There was one time in particular when my friend Dan was really upset because he heard through the grapevine that his so-called friend, Ben, had been spreading rumors that he was gay and given him the nickname Pikachu. In the past, Ben would even say things like, "We all know Pikachu is gay," and everyone in the group would laugh, including Dan, because he thought it was just funny silliness. Ben had always been a speedsterer, and I was livid when I saw how upset Dan was. One day, Dan and I were sitting in the library, and Ben was at one of the computers directly across from us with his back to us. I proceeded to talk to Dan about Ben like he wasn't there in a very passive-aggressive way, saying things like, "I can believe that some people are starting such stupid rumors, like Pikachu is gay," and other stuff like that, but it wasn't so much what I said. It was definitely in the malicious manner in which I spoke. I could tell that it was affecting Ben because his ears were bright red. I saw Ben in the hallway a few days later and he gave me a look like I had never seen before. According to Dan, Ben said that it was all misinterpreted and his words were taken out of context. Who knows if that was true, but I was definitely the villain in his story. Also, I dated a guy and ended up breaking things off because something seemed weird and I didn't completely trust him. Come to find out, he had been engaged the entire time, living a double life. I told some people and it ended up getting back to his fiancée. She reached out to me and genuinely wanted to know the truth, so I told her. This did not make me happy and I felt absolutely terrible, but I thought she deserved the truth. She ended the engagement and made him call his parents and tell them everything. She thanked me numerous times and said that she had always felt like something was off but she never had evidence. I am absolutely the villain in this guy's story. If it weren't for me, they would be married. I also have similar high school regrets. I was never expressly mean, but I was very dismissive to a classmate who had dumped a friend and immediately started dating someone else. My friend was depressed and I genuinely believe she was after the popularity, but we were idiot kids. I don't think it was good enough reason for how much I disliked her. When she asked me for a favor, I was quite rude. We both still had good high school lives generally, but I know I was the antagonist. I never even heard her side of the story. I have for the longest time always tried to do the right thing or the good thing. But one time I didn't. I was shunned by my class due to a false rumor, only found out years later that was why. There was another girl who was cast out for a while too, but I don't remember why. When there was an opening for me to be accepted in the class in general, I left her behind in favor of these people who had kind of bullied us both at that point. I know I was the bad person in that instance and don't hold it against if she doesn't ever forgive me for it. That's a moment I look back and realize that even I am a weak person and can be selfish even when I know that it isn't right. It makes me think harder to be objective and fair. I don't think I'm a bad person, but there are plenty of moments when I disregarded the feelings of others, mostly in my teens. I didn't have bad intentions, but I was bad at considering other people's perspectives and I didn't feel the need to hold back my opinion for anyone else's benefit. One example, in middle school a girl I ate lunch with would repeatedly complain about being overweight, but she drank a pop every day at lunch. I told her that pop definitely contributed to her weight. She continued to drink pop and complain, so I told her that it was annoying for her to constantly complain if she wasn't willing to do anything to change. Throughout middle school, this girl would be not talking to me, which I honestly didn't notice until our mutual friend went to the trouble of informing me. I am 100% sure that girl thought I was a villain. In early college I was also intentionally cruel to my friend's boyfriend. Pretty much whenever I was around him, it was over the edge of too mean to quite be considered friendly banter. I held a lot of resentment towards him because he had cheated on my friend, and I didn't really want to be nice to him. Later he drunk cried to me about it, and I felt kinda bad because I didn't realize it affected him that much. I toned it down a bit because I realized that I needed to respect my friend's choice to be with him, even if I couldn't support it. I was bullying a friend in the 4th grade because my best friend was doing it. I remember always leaving the school bus with a dreadful feeling in my chest but didn't know why. Before the start of 5th grade, I was outside and saw her and asked to play with her and she said, "Why would I play with you? You're so mean to me." That's when I actually realized what I had done the last year. Being online has made me realize I am a villain literally for expressing an opinion. It's weird how the world has changed for the worst in this respect. Discussions can no longer be had. Opinion on stuff like food or opinion on moral issues. People will get mad about how you cook your eggs or season your chicken. Nothing is safe. I haven't seen too much uproar for people offering innocent opinions. What kind of opinions have been crucified? When a really good friend cut ties with me, it hurt so bad I was a wreck for days. It make me question everything about myself. It was likely that I asked too much of her since I went through a breakup and was really leaning on her for support. She also went through a breakup and then went straight into a different relationship. I was bitter about her finding love again so quickly after her breakup, and I really regret the subtle way I showed that bitterness. I'm probably the villain in her story. I feel bad about it.